The best time to start investing is not today, it was yesterday. Hey, what's up you guys? Lukas here from excelwealth.com. Now in today's video, I actually want to go through the 5 money mistakes people in their 20s go through so often. Now, I'll tell you this, I'm not in my 20s anymore, I'm already in my 30s. And the things that I did in my 20s, I'll tell you this, if you're still young and you know that you make certain mistakes, some money mistakes, if you know that quite early on, it's still okay. You can still overcome the mistakes that you've done. But this is so important that you gotta understand and you gotta start early and you gotta start on time. If you don't do this, if you don't start on time, the first thing is this time is gonna overtake you, and what's gonna happen is that you're gonna regret the mistakes that you did in your 20s. Everybody knows this, we only live once. YOLO, everybody says YOLO, you only live once. This is why you could start with your life and avoid, I'm not saying actually avoid, you should be making these mistakes. It's not about avoiding mistakes, it's about making up for the mistakes that you've done probably or not gonna do in the future since you've watched this video. Okay, let's go into this. Mistake number one. Mistake number one is always waiting. Now, what do I mean with waiting? It's waiting to invest your money. And you got to really understand like this, because what happens so often is when you're in your 20s, you really believe, hey, I don't have the money yet, so I shouldn't be investing my money. Now, there's a huge difference, of course, between investing and, of course, saving. Saving is short term. When we take a look at saving, you're saving up your money to buy the things that you want in a short term. For example, it could be within a half a year. You're trying to save up for a phone. You're trying to save up for a holiday. Those are the short-term goals that you have. But investing should be done for the long term. This is why it's so important that when you're only in your 20s, you should absolutely start investing your money already. Because the moment you start earlier, it's always a great deal. It makes a huge difference when you start early. This is why it's so important that you actually should start on time instead of waiting and saying like, you know what, so the moment I finish my degree, I'll start investing then. That's always the mistake. That's the biggest mistake that you can make, waiting for the best time to do so. The best time to start investing is not today, it was yesterday. But because you missed that opportunity, today is your next best chance. So take and start today to give you an idea why you should not be waiting. I just had to wipe that out first, right? If you would start, now I would always say you could always save up $100 per month. So if you would be able to save up $100 per month and you would use that $100 per month to invest it. So you would invest. So what you would do, you would use it $100, you would use the $100 to invest every month in a certain fund. In this case, we're using the strategy, again, we're using the strategy, buying and holding. The only thing is you're only buying a certain stock and then you're holding onto it. That's the only thing we do. So let's pretend that you're holding, that you're investing $100 every month. Now, I don't know about you, but in any kind of situation, no matter what kind of situation you're in your 20s, you should be absolutely able to invest $100 per month. We're not even talking about per week. So I don't know about you, but back when I was in my teens as well, when I would go out for a weekend, I would absolutely spend $100 already. So $100 is easily saved up and invested. If you would save up $100 per month, this would actually result into $1,200 per year, okay? So this would be $1,200 per year. Now, if you would have an annual return on investment of 8%, this of course would mean $96. So in the first year you would get from over that $1,200, you would get $96. Now, what you would do is you would, like I said, the strategy is buying and holding. You're doing nothing else with the money. So the second year, what happens is you have another $1,200 that you put in. This results into $2,400, including the $96. Now, over this amount, again, you would get 8% return on investment. And this is how this grows. So again, you would get 8% interest rate over the $24.96. In this case, that's like $199 somewhat, but I'll just round it off to $200. So after the second year, you already get $200 of interest rate over that $2,400. Now, of course, in the third year, again, another $1,200 comes over because that's what you invest. That results, including this amount again, you get another 8%. You get another 8% interest rate, which results into $312. So this is again $312. This is how it starts growing. Now, you might be thinking, this is not that much yet. And I get that. But you got to see it like this. So when you start in your 20s and you wait 45 years, 65 years when you want to retire, and I get it. If we take a look at the retirement age, it's getting higher and higher right now. This is why you should start today. You should already start today. Now, if you wait 45 years, you're waiting 45 years, the amount accumulated is already over $463 with just by buying and holding. I'm not even saying you're applying a certain strategy. The only strategy that you're applying here is investing $100 per month. And yes, even when you're making more money, you're not investing more. The only simple strategy that you are applying is you're buying stocks for $100 per month and you're holding it for 45 years, resulting into $463,000 by doing nothing else but just buying and holding. This is a huge difference. Now you might be thinking, is it really that much? 45 years and then getting 400,000? Well, I'll tell you this. Let's pretend, so you're in your 20s, you're just making a certain mistake. You think, you know what? I'm still in my 20s. I want to enjoy my life. I'm not going to invest at $100 per month, which I could understand if you do not, if you're not financially educated. I could understand that. But you really got to understand like this. You got to really see it like this. If you start, instead of in your 20s, you would start in your 30s. Okay, this is a huge difference. This is the huge difference. Let's pretend that you're starting in your 30s, saying like, you know what? I'm making quite some money right now. Now I'm going to start saving up money. Now I'm going to start investing my money. And you're doing the exact same thing. You're investing $100 per month in a certain stock, and you're still getting 8% return on your investment. Okay, so let's pretend that you were doing the exact same thing. The only difference is that here you start in your 20s and here you start in your 30s, okay? So the only difference is a 10-year difference, a 10-year time difference between the two. What you would do, you'd be waiting 35 years, okay? You're waiting 35 years. Instead of 45, you're waiting 35 years. In those 35 years, you'd only be able to accumulate $206,000, which is even less than half of the amount if you would start it in your 20s. Now this is making the huge difference here. You're starting 10 years later. You're investing the exact same amount. You're using the exact same strategy. And the huge difference is here is over $250,000. The only thing what you did is putting in money. Waiting. This is what waiting costs you. This is what the downside is of waiting too long, waiting for that opportunity to come. This is why so many people are still poor the moment they retire, because they were always waiting. And this is the first mistake that you should absolutely avoid when you're still in your 20s. So while you're watching this video, I don't know how old you are. I don't care how old you are. If you haven't started investing yet, start today. Even if you're starting today and you're in your 40s, that's still okay. You still got 25 years to go. Because if you never start, those are the people who retire and still think, you know what, I still got to work in a McDonald's because I still got to come around. My pension is not going to pay for all the expenses that I have. That's the biggest mistake. So instead of waiting, take action. Number 2, Number two is buying. The one of the 5 mistakes that people in their 20s tend to make is buying an expensive car. Now I'll tell you this, I'll go into in a bit the mistakes that I'll tell you this, I made this exact same mistake myself as well. I bought a Mercedes back, when I was in the beginning of my 20s, because I made a huge win on the stock market and I was very happy with it. What I did is I bought almost a brand new Mercedes. I think it was like 2 months old, had like, just a few thousand miles on it. But that's a huge mistake. But if you're buying a car to use for yourself, the car is not growing in value, not at all. It's a depreciating asset, an asset that does not grow in value over time. This is the biggest mistake that people in their 20s tend to make. Now, if you know me already, of course, you probably might know that I'm a professor in a university myself. I still teach in a university for 1 or 2 days in a week. And yes, those students in their 20s, absolutely, they always have cars. They're leasing cars. They got private lease on cars. They always buy cars that are far too expensive. Now, buying an expensive car, that looks really fancy and cool when you arrive at the school park. But then again, you just leave your car there and then you get out of your car and you sit in the school banks all of the day and then you go back home again. And yes, it looks cool, but it takes a lot of money out of your pocket every time again. I always say your car, the expenses of your car should not exceed the 10% of your total income. You always got to think about how much money does the car take out of my pocket. If the car takes, this $300, you might be thinking, wow, $300 isn't that much. Yeah, but you need insurance, you need all the expenses, you need all the repairs, you need the annual repairs. All the expenses covered in a year should not exceed this amount, not exceed the 10% of your wallet every month. If your income is only $3,000, your car should absolutely not be more than $300 in total, including the insurance, including all the expenses around the car, should absolutely not exceed $300 per month. If you have a car loan that is more than that, then yes, I get it that you do not have any money left at the end of the month. This is why it's so important to not buy an expensive car. So what happened later on, of course, I bought my Mercedes. It is very expensive. And this is why this is something that you should avoid. Avoid making this mistake of buying a too expensive car. Okay? Let's go to number 3. Now, number 3 is getting into debts. Like, for example, a student loan. Like you already know, I'm a university professor myself. I love studying as well. But you also got to see it like this. If you do a major that does not generate you money directly and you want to make money in the end, then it doesn't really match up, right? You got to really do the things that match up. Now, some jobs don't really need any education, do not need any college degree, do not need any university degree. For example, if you want to be a plumber, if you want to be a carpenter, good, you can just learn by doing so, and then of course you can do the job already. Now I'll tell you this, being a university professor, I'm a university professor in behavior and communication. If your toilet breaks down in the middle of the night, I'm sure that people are not going to call me and say, hey, Lucas, I need some communication help here. No, it's not. It's not helping me out anyway. Because if you want to be making money, the person in the middle of the night, if your toilet breaks down, you got a whole bathroom filled up with water, you need a plumber by then. And that's a job that you can get, easily and yet make money. But I'll tell you this, I don't love that kind of a job. I'm not able to do it. I need my carpenters as well to build the things that I can't. Now, if you go into debt and you use your loan to do an education, take an education, which is totally fine. But if you're not making any money with the job that you got, doing the major that you took, it's not going to get you anywhere. A debt is not going to get you anywhere. The debt is only piling up. This is what I see very often. The moment my students graduate from the university, they become an alumni, and some, they keep in touch with me. So the moment you graduate, you go into even more debt. Like what I see very often is that these students, these alumni, of course they're graduated, they have like 15,000, maybe 25,000 student loan debt, which is still okay in interest rate, of course. In our country, it's like, I don't know, like 0%. I don't know about your country. Let me know down below in the comments what kind of country you live in and what kind of student interest you need to pay on the student loan debts, okay? Now, these alumni, they just go into debt, but the thing is, the moment they start making money is they buy a house, which is, you know, makes sense because everybody in their age buys a house. You know, they're like, I don't know, 22, 23, maybe 25. They're buying a house, going into more debt, which is still okay, but okay. What happens is the moment they make a little bit more extra money, they tend to buy a new car, they lease a car, and yet they're going into even more debt. So before they even reach their 30s, what I see with these alumni students, and they just go into debt and more debt and more debt and more debt. Instead of acquiring assets, they should use their money to acquire assets that makes money, that puts money into their pockets. That's the mistake that so many people make in their 20s. Absolutely all those students who graduate from university and go into debt even more. Okay? This is why I'm not saying that you should live debt-free. I'm just saying you should live with the good debt. The good debt is going to create money, it's going to put money into your pocket. And that is what you should think about as well. Number 4, one of the biggest mistakes when you're in your 20s, in your financial 20s, is not keeping track of your finances. This is what I see very often. Now, people in their 20s, they just tend to use their money the moment it comes in, the moment they get their income, they tend to use their money. And that just, at least keep track of it. They do not even know how much money goes into their hobby. They don't even know how much money goes into their savings. They don't even know how much money should go into their emergency fund. They just tend to spend. And in the end of the month, whatever amount is left, that is the amount for them, right? That's like the guilt-free spending all of a sudden. This is one of the biggest mistakes, because if you do not track your finances, you have no idea how much debt you have, you don't know how much your car costs, and you don't even know what you should do with your excessive time, the time that you have to have your money work for you. So absolutely make an overview. If you don't know how to make an overview, be sure to check out my other video of how to pay yourself first. So number 5 talks about avoiding risk. What my students always tend to say is like, Lucas, I don't know what to do with my life. I always ask them, what is your goal? Now, if you do know what your goal is, avoiding the risk to achieve your goal is one of the biggest mistakes that you could do as well. Because you get offered an opportunity very often. You get offered the opportunity to take a risk. I'm not saying a life-threatening risk. I'm just saying you're gonna take a risk, you're gonna input time that you might not get back. But if you take the risk in doing so, you might be very successful. Now, the first thing is, the moment my students graduate from university, my students already know that I'm in the financial world. I love investing. I love talking about investing. I invested a lot myself. I love investing in real estate. Now, all my students say, Lucas, I want to take your financial education in your course. I want to take the risk of, I don't know if I can make my fortune with what you're doing. I'll tell you this, I don't know if that works for you, but what I can tell you is many of my other previous students have taken the same risk to take the opportunity to become wealthy, and instead of waiting for your wealth to come up. That's what so many students have done of me. That's what so many students of mine have done. Instead of avoiding a risk, taking a certain risk, and even if you make a mistake, I'll tell you this, you know that of my story, and if you haven't yet, be sure to check out my other videos. I've taken risk in my life as well, and some haven't worked out. Now, I'll tell you this, when I was only 17 years old, I took on my own coach, which was a risk. She cost a lot of money back when I was 17. I saved up a lot of money to pay for that coach, but that coach gave me so many things to work on starting from my 17s. So I was only 17 years old, but that's a risk that you sometimes got to take. And all of a sudden, that coach taught me so many things about life, financially educated, and all of a sudden, when I was 22, I started making a lot of money already. Sometimes you got to just take risk. I'm not saying you should buy a lottery ticket, because that's not a risk that you can control, but you should be able to control your own risk and take opportunities in your life. It's creating the better version of yourself. And these are the 5 financial mistakes that in your 20s you should absolutely avoid making, or at least make them and then go through them. Instead of waiting, invest your money. Start as soon as you can. If you've watched this video, start investing today. If you don't know how, just reach out to me. Don't buy your expensive car, because an expensive car is not going to make you any wealthier. It's not going to make you any richer. Instead of instant gratification, wait a little. You can absolutely wait a little. Instead of buying that car right now, you can absolutely buy it later. Instead of going into more debts, try to get into good debt that creates money and puts money into your pocket. Absolutely go start tracking your finances. Be sure where your money goes through and how it flows. And of course, instead of avoiding risk, sometimes take a little bit of risk. Go take the opportunity to make yourself the better version. And these are the 5 mistakes that you should absolutely avoid. Hey, thank you very much for watching today's video. If you liked the video, be sure to hit that like button. Of course, only do it once, because if you do it again, it'll just turn gray again. So be sure to hit that on uneven times. If you're new to the channel, you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you want to be notified every time a new video is released, be sure to hit that notification bell as well. Thank you very much for watching, of course, and happy investing. Bye-bye.